friends. I'm St. John the Evangelist coming to you here from my office here in Agawam. And wanted to share with you as we continue to pray with one another using the means that are available to us, particularly technology and online videos. Wanted to share with you the Apostolic letter of Pope St. John Paul II on the Most Holy Rosary, Rosarium Virginis Mariae. It's an apostolic letter that our Holy Father, Pope St. John Paul II, published in 2002, just a few short years before his own death. And we know that Pope St. John Paul II had a great Marian devotion. He was entrusted to our Blessed Mother Mary from a very young age. His own mother died when he was just a young boy. And suffering that loss of the maternal care, the very intercession and love of a mother, as so many of you and I have, his father entrusted him to our Blessed Mother Mary. He brought him to a beautiful church not far from Wadowice in southern Poland, where Pope St. John Paul II was born, Karol Wojtyła. And his dad showed him an image of our Blessed Mother Mary, an icon, and said, "This is your mother now." And throughout his life and throughout his pontificate, Pope St. John Paul II showed great devotion to our Blessed Mother Mary, even using as his motto, totus tuus, all yours. That is, all yours to Jesus through Mary. To Jesus through Mary. Mary gives us an opportunity to pray and to be united with Christ. The Christ Jesus who was united to us in our humanity through the virginal womb of our Blessed Mother Mary. And Pope St. John Paul II had a particular devotion to that instrument that you and I so regularly make use of ourselves, the Most Holy Rosary. And so praying together a Holy Rosary, I invite you to hear the words of our Holy Father from this, his apostolic letter, as he introduces for us the Most Holy Rosary. An introduction. The Rosary of the Virgin Mary, which gradually took form in the second millennium under the guidance of the Spirit of God, is a prayer loved by countless saints and encouraged by the Magisterium. Simple yet profound, it still remains at the dawn of this third millennium a prayer of great significance, destined to bring forth the harvest of holiness. It blends easily into the spiritual journey of the Christian life, which, after 2,000 years, has lost none of the freshness of its beginnings, and feels drawn by the Spirit of God to set out into the deep, duc in altum, in order once more to proclaim and even cry out before the world that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior, the way and the truth and the life, the goal of human history and the point on which the desires of history and civilization turn. The Rosary, though clearly Marian in character, is at heart a Christocentric prayer. In the sobriety of its elements, it has all the depth of the gospel message in its entirety, of which it can be said to be a compendium. It is an echo of the prayer of Mary, her perennial Magnificat, for the work of the redemptive incarnation which began in her virginal womb. With the Rosary, the Christian people sits at the school of Mary, and is led to contemplate the beauty on the face of Christ and to experience the depths of his love. Through the Rosary, the faithful receive abundant grace, as though from the very hands of the Mother of the Redeemer. The popes in the Rosary. Numerous predecessors of mine attributed great importance to this prayer. Worthy of special note in this regard is Pope Leo XIII, who on September 1st, 1883, promulgated the encyclical Supremi Apostolatus Officio, a document of great worth, the first of his many statements about this prayer, in which he proposed the Rosary as an effective spiritual weapon against the evils afflicting society. Among the more recent popes, who from the time of the Second Vatican Council have distinguished themselves in promoting the Rosary, I would mention Blessed, now Pope St. John the 23rd, and above all, Pope Blessed Paul VI, who in his apostolic exhortation, Marialis Cultus, emphasized, in the spirit of the Second Vatican Council, the Rosary's evangelical character and its Christocentric inspiration. I myself have often encouraged the frequent recitation of the Rosary. From my youthful years, this prayer has held an important place in my spiritual life. I was powerfully reminded of this during my recent visit to Poland, and in particular at the shrine of Kalwaria Żebrzydowska. The Rosary has accompanied me in moments of joy and in moments of difficulty. To it I have entrusted any number of concerns. In it I have always found comfort. "24 years ago, on October 29, 1978, scarcely 2 weeks after my election to the See of Peter, I frankly admitted the Rosary is my favorite prayer. A marvelous prayer, marvelous in its simplicity and its depth. It can be said that the Rosary is, in some sense, a prayer commentary on the final chapter of the Vatican II Constitution, Lumen Gentium, a chapter which discusses the wondrous presence of the Mother of God in the mystery of Christ and His Church. Against the background of the words Ave Maria, the principal events of the life of Jesus Christ pass before the eyes of the soul. They take shape in the complete series of the joyful, sorrowful, and glorious mysteries, and they put us in living communion with Jesus through, we might say, the heart of His mother. At the same time, our heart can embrace, in the decades of the Rosary, all the events that make up the lives of individuals, families, nations, the Church, and all mankind. Our personal concerns and those of our neighbor, especially those who are closest to us, who are dearest to us. Thus, the simple prayer of the Rosary marks the rhythm of human life. With these words, dear brothers and sisters, I set the first year of my pontificate within the daily rhythm of the Rosary. Today, as I begin the 25th year of my service as a successor of Peter, I wish to do the same. How many graces have I received in these years from the Blessed Virgin through the Rosary? Magnificat anima mea Dominum. I wish to lift up my thanks to the Lord in the words of His Most Holy Mother, under whose protection I have placed my Petrine ministry, Totus Tuus. October 2002 through 2003, the year of the Rosary. Therefore, in continuity with my reflection in the Apostolic letter, Novo Millennio Innuente, in which, after the experience of the Jubilee, I invited the people of God to start afresh from Christ, I have felt drawn to offer a reflection on the Rosary, as a kind of Marian complement to that letter, and an exhortation to contemplate the face of Christ in union with and at the school of His Most Holy Mother. To recite the Rosary is nothing other than to contemplate with Mary the face of Christ. As a way of highlighting this invitation, prompted by the forthcoming 120th anniversary of the aforementioned encyclical of Leo XIII, I desire that during the course of this year, the Rosary should be especially emphasized and promoted in the various Christian communities. I therefore proclaim the year from October 2002 to October 2003, the year of the Rosary. I leave this pastoral proposal to the initiative of each ecclesial community. It is not my intention to encumber, but rather to complete and consolidate pastoral programs of the particular churches. I am confident that the proposal will find a ready and generous reception. The Rosary, reclaimed in its full meaning, goes to the very heart of Christian life. It offers a familiar yet fruitful spiritual and educational opportunity for personal contemplation, the formation of the people of God, and the new evangelization. I am pleased to reaffirm this also in the joyful remembrance of another anniversary, the 40th anniversary of the opening of the Second Vatican Council, Ecumenical Council, on October 11, 1962, the great grace disposed by the Spirit of God for the Church in our time. Objections to the Rosary. The timeliness of this proposal is evident from a number of considerations. First, the urgent need to counter a certain crisis of the Rosary, which in the present historical and theological context can risk being wrongly devalued and therefore no longer taught to the younger generation. There are some who think that the centrality of the liturgy, rightly stressed by the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council, necessarily entails giving lesser importance to the Rosary. Yet, as Pope Paul VI made clear, not only does this prayer not conflict with the liturgy, it sustains it, since it serves as an excellent introduction and a faithful echo of the liturgy, enabling people to participate fully and interiorly in it, and to reap its fruits in their daily lives. Perhaps, too, there are some who fear that the Rosary is somehow unecumenical because of its distinctly Marian character. Yet the Rosary clearly belongs to the kind of veneration of the Mother of God described by the Council, a devotion directed to the Christological center of the Christian faith, in such a way that when the Mother is honored, the Son is duly known, loved, and glorified. If properly revitalized, the Rosary is an aid and certainly not a hindrance to ecumenism, a path of contemplation. But the most important reason for strongly encouraging the practice of the Rosary is that it represents a most effective means of fostering among the faithful that commitment to the contemplation of the Christian mystery, which I have proposed in the Apostolic letter Novo Millennio Innuente, as a genuine training in holiness. What is needed is a Christian life distinguished above all in the art of prayer. Inasmuch as contemporary culture, even amid so many indications to the contrary, has witnessed the flowering of a new call for spirituality, due also to the influence of other religions, it is more urgent than ever that our Christian communities should become genuine schools of prayer. The Rosary belongs among the finest and most praiseworthy traditions of Christian contemplation. Developed in the West, it is a typically meditative prayer, corresponding in some way to the prayer of the heart, or Jesus prayer, which took root in the soil of the Christian East. Prayer for peace and for the family. A number of historical circumstances also make a revival of the Rosary quite timely. First of all, the need to implore from God the gift of peace. The Rosary has many times been proposed by my predecessors and myself as a prayer for peace. At the start of a millennium, which began with the terrifying attacks of September the 11th, 2001, a millennium which witnesses every day in numerous parts of the world fresh scenes of bloodshed and violence, to rediscover the Rosary means to immerse oneself in contemplation of the mystery of Christ, who is our peace. Since he made the two of us one and broke down the dividing wall of hostility. Consequently, one cannot recite the Rosary without feeling caught up in a clear commitment to advancing peace, especially in the land of Jesus, still so sorely afflicted and so close to the heart of every Christian. A similar need for commitment and prayer arises in relation to another critical contemporary issue, the family, the primary cell of society, increasingly menaced by forces of disintegration on both the ideological and practical planes, so as to make us fear for the future of this fundamental and indispensable institution, and with it, for the future for society as a whole. The revival of the Rosary in Christian families, within the context of a broader pastoral ministry to the family, will be an effective aid to countering the devastating effects of this crisis typical of our age. Behold your mother. Many signs indicate that still today the Blessed Virgin desires to exercise through this same prayer that maternal concern to which the dying Redeemer entrusted, in the person of the beloved disciple, St. John the Evangelist, all the sons and daughters of the Church. Woman, behold your son. Well known are the occasions in the 19th and 20th centuries on which the Mother of Christ made her presence felt and her voice heard in order to exhort the people of God to this form of contemplative prayer. I would mention in particular, on account their great influence on the lives of Christians and the authoritative recognition they have received from the Church, the apparitions of Lourdes and of Fatima. These shrines continue to be visited by great numbers of pilgrims seeking comfort and hope. Following the witnesses. It would be impossible to name all the many saints who discovered in the Rosary a genuine path to growth in holiness. We need but mention Saint Louis-Marie Grignon de Montfort, the author of an excellent work on the Rosary, The Secret of the Rosary, and closer to ourselves, Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, Saint Pio today, whom I recently had the joy of canonizing. As a true apostle of the Rosary, Blessed Bartolo Longo had a special charism. His path to holiness rested on an inspiration heard in the depths of his heart. Whoever spreads the Rosary is saved. As a result, he felt called to build a church dedicated to Our Lady of the Holy Rosary in Pompeii, against the background of the ruins of the ancient city, which scarcely heard the proclamation of Christ before being buried in 79 AD under Mount Vesuvius, only to emerge centuries later from its ashes as a witness to the lights and shadows of classical civilization. By his whole life's work, and especially by the practice of the 15 Saturdays, Bartolo Longo promoted the Christocentric and contemplative heart of the Rosary, and received great encouragement and support from Leo XIII, the Pope of the Rosary. With this introduction to the Apostolic letter of Pope St. John Paul II on the Most Holy Rosary, I invite you to pray the Rosary. We'll continue with some more of our readings of this Apostolic letter as it continues to reveal the great treasure that is the Rosary and this prayer to Christ through Mary. And I invite you to continue in your own home, with your own family, and with those who pray the Rosary throughout the world, to be united to Christ through Mary. God bless you.